The Boston Latino International Film Festival is back on schedule, this time with virtual showings of new works from the Americas and beyond. To tell us about the lineup is the festival's director, Sabrina Avilés. Thank you very much for being with us, Sabrina.
Thank you for having me.
Sabrina, before we get going with this year, talk about why this festival was started.
I think that the festival was started because the founder and ex-director, he saw that there was a kind of a void in New England, that there wasn't a Latino film festival per se. There had been other film festivals in Boston, but there wasn't a niche one like Latino voices. So he started it in Cambridge for the first couple of days, and then he wanted to sort of expand his vision of audiences and decided to rename it to the Boston Latino International Film Festival. But there was definitely a void, and he took advantage of that. So.
Well, this, in a way, is represented in one of the films here, a sort of a biography of Rita Moreno. I grew up encountering her in West Side Story, which brings up this whole issue of here's the breakthrough artist who is always being typecast. Tell us a little bit about that film.
So it's a wonderful film by a Puerto Rican filmmaker named Mariem Perez Rivera, and it basically chronicles Rita's life, starting from where she is now and her success, even as well. Now she's in her 90s, but I think when they were filming it, she might have been an octogenarian. So with her current roles and One Day at a Time on Netflix. And so it takes us back basically to her history and how she started and how really she was a trailblazer in Hollywood. And that, as a trailblazer, she had to basically go through a lot of racial injustices and typecasting, really paving the way for later actors to then fill in, try to step in. But she, again, it's a cliche, but she sort of paved the way for many Latinx actors that were to come.
We have another film about two artists. In this case, we're talking about geopolitical typecasting, Los Hermanos. This is a U.S.-Cuban film. What would people see in that?
Oh, it's actually one of my favorite films of the festival, and I think also because it really is about the relationship of two brothers who have been separated by choices they made early in their life, one to stay in Cuba and one to come here, and they both are virtuoso artists. But it's about their relationship and how when the sanctions were lifted, um, uh, the younger brother ended up coming to America and tour with his older brother. So it's a wonderful story about music, about art, and how art is used really to. It's more as one of the brothers says. It's more art is more powerful than politics, and the music is just vibrant. But underneath it all, there is this kind of tension between where we are as a country and what our relationship to Cuba has been. So there is definitely a twist at the end, but the music is just brilliant.
One film in this festival that maybe is even more timely than you expected when you put it on the list is called On the Divide, and we're getting all this news now about abortion rights in Texas. What would people see in this film?
It's so ironic that we're showing it, but it kind of tells you how we're kind of at the pulse of what's going on in the world in terms of like social justice and how it impacts our community, the Latinx community. But in this case, it profiles three people who are kind of around the abortion uh, 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 issue. And one is, of course, they're all Latinx. One is against, and one is for. And then there's this. It also is about this older. He's like a security guard who protects women who go get an abortion, and how he struggles with the whole, how he struggles with the debate, because obviously he wants to protect these women who are exercising their right to choose, but he gets a lot of pushback from his own family. But it again, I think that a film like On the Divide is 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 a springboard, if you will, as many of our films are, to have a larger conversation about what is going on around these types of issues, both locally and nationally. So it's incredibly timely. And we have a Q&A with the filmmakers afterwards. That was pre-recorded prior to what happened in Texas. And now I'm wondering whether we should go back, but they're unfortunately too occupied.
There are two other very topical films here, both documentaries, one dealing pretty much with immigration, the other with this overlap between immigration, farm worker exploitation. What about those films?
Again, Fruits of Labor and Missing in Brooks County, two very different type of documentaries, but all around the issue of immigration. And I think that Missing in Brooks County plays like more an investigative piece, but a really affecting piece, because we always hear about undocumented immigrants coming into this country and the struggles. But there's, for everyone that comes, there are others that never make it. And it's like these voices that you never hear about in the news, and the families that have to struggle to find these persons' remains. So it's a really powerful documentary. And then Fruits of Labor is more like a reflection with elements of magical realism about this young migrant worker who is absolutely brilliant and thoughtful and wants to succeed in educating herself, but she's torn between going to school and trying just to be a normal teenager when she still has to work out in the field. So it's basically it's a reflection on her work and her life and her role as an extension of this migrant family. It's a beautifully made film. Emily the Cohen Ibanez, the director, just was the portrait is so intimate and so and again, she mixes elements of magical realism. So the film itself, I think, is like a poem to both literally and figuratively to this young woman's life.
In a totally different vein, you have Perfume de Gardenias, which is a dark comedy about death.
Yes.
Did that lift your spirits?
At first I was watching it and I was like, where is this going? And it did because I think that it has some universal messages in it, but me being half Puerto Rican, there's a lot of it that was very relatable to me in terms of the way people interacted with each other. Yes, and it did lift my spirits because I wasn't sure where it was going. But again, part of Macha's brilliance was, again, integrating the comedy and kind of the dark humor that we Puerto Ricans have, along with just, again, elements of magical realism where you don't know where things are, what is surreal and what is real. But it was wonderful.
And plus, when you said magical realism, there's a touch of that in the one Brazilian film, Meu Querido Supermercado, My Darling Supermarket. It reminds me of when I worked in a food store.
Yeah, and it's funny because it came out during COVID, and it's almost, you can almost step back and think of it as an homage to essential workers. I don't know if it's more magical realism as it is kind of a quirky observational film that I think you have to have a little bit of patience with it. And I always love to throw in films like that, that challenge the audiences. But I think that for me, I was very pleasantly surprised with that film because it was very funny and very touching, and the characters just absolutely suck you in, and they're just They're just regular supermarket workers who just have their own philosophy on life and on their role. It was wonderful, wonderful, beautifully shot too, beautifully shot.
Yes, it reminded me of my younger days. Sabrina, if people want to catch up with this, please tell us the dates and how they can plug in.
The dates are September 24th through October 3rd. You can buy tickets, go to bliff.org, and there'll be a little tab where just press on to buy tickets. Some films will be shown. You have to check to see what the range of times that they'll be shown. Most films will be available for all 10 days. Some will be only available for 3 or 4 days. So check to see, and I would go soon to check what those dates are. And yeah, and you can find us on Facebook. You can find us, follow us on Instagram. We're there all the time with more information. So
Thank you very much for taking the time to join us.
thank you so much for having me. This has been a pleasure.
There is Sabrina Avilés from the Boston Latino International Film Festival.